Welcome back to the Scaredy Cat Guide, my friends. My name is Jenny, and today we are talking about the Tower of Terror in Disney's Hollywood Studios. If you're new here, this is the channel where we talk about Disney and anxiety, we talk about sensory issues, and really just anything that you might want to know if you're an anxious rider at Disney World, just like me. Now, this may come as no surprise, but the Tower of Terror is not one of my favorite rides. As someone who is really triggered by small spaces and claustrophobia, who doesn't really appreciate drops, it really is just a bad combination when it comes to me. However, it is an absolute classic and definitely one that is worth seeing even just for the queue, just for the special effects. It's really an amazing ride. So without further ado, let's dive into those details. This ill-fated elevator ride contains sudden freefall drops, some spooky theming, and of course, a claustrophobic queue and ride system. So let's start off by talking about the thrill elements. Now, this attraction is not a full-blown roller coaster, but you absolutely will come across some randomized free fall drops. And what I mean by this is that you can ride this attraction many times and it can feel different just about every time. There are 4 possible drop patterns, which means that you will be faced with sudden drops and lifts that might just be leaving you wondering when this ride will be over. Because these drop patterns are randomized, you really don't know what's coming. You really cannot prepare for when the elevator will shoot upwards or shoot downwards, and it can definitely kind of up the intensity factor, especially if you're like me and you really don't do well with feeling kind of disoriented or not knowing what to expect. So let's talk about those actual drops. While the drop patterns are randomized and you'll have a series of some short, some long drops along the way, the longest, tallest drop that you will encounter every time that you ride is 131 feet high. In other words, this is 13 full stories that you will be dropping at one time. Now, the speed at which you will be taking this plunge is 39 miles per hour. Now, many people don't know this, but this is actually faster than gravity can carry you. So if your worst fear is plunging down a broken elevator shaft, this is faster than that. Again, to put this into perspective, this is faster than Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, and the Seven Dwarfs Mine Train over at Magic Kingdom. So if you really don't do well with drops, specifically free fall drops like the ones you'll encounter on this attraction, just know that it's not only just a free fall drop, but you're actually traveling faster than gravity can carry you. Now let's move on to the potentially scary theming here. Now, this is one of the few attractions in Walt Disney World that I think is intentionally scary. In a lot of ways, it has a lot in common with the Haunted Mansion over in Magic Kingdom, and as a potentially scary ride, you will absolutely come across some spooky theming. Now, this entire attraction is set at a haunted hotel. So as I'm sure you can imagine, you will be entering this spooky hotel. You'll see spider webs everywhere. It will look abandoned and spooky, very much like the Haunted Mansion theming, I would say. But on top of that, you will also have a pretty ominous vibe throughout this attraction. If you're familiar with the Twilight Zone, you've definitely got some of that theming, some of that vibe that's ominous and spooky and intentionally scary, I would say. It's also important to note that the first half of this attraction is actually a dark ride. And in this dark ride portion, you will see a family that is struck by lightning and teleported into this other dimension. It isn't incredibly violent or anything like that, but it definitely is spooky, it's definitely unsettling, and it's worth noting that in this family there is also a child. And seeing this little girl get struck by lightning and sent into another dimension could be just, a little triggering for some people, so I thought I would mention it. On top of that, this dark ride portion also has some kind of trippy visuals. You'll enter this kind of star-studded void where you really can't tell where the walls are or where you're headed, like you really are entering this other dimension. There will be some kind of trippy visuals and sound design. Again, it's not anything just overtly terrifying or like straight up horror or anything like that, but it's definitely enough to give you the heebie-jeebies. Now let's jump into what I think is potentially the most intimidating part of this attraction, and that is the claustrophobia. Now, I would definitely say here that this attraction can cause some extreme claustrophobia for some people. Of course, you will come across some small and enclosed spaces. The ride vehicles, which we'll talk about later, are brought to life in an elevator ride system. So you will be walking into this elevator with all these other people, which of course, if you're like me, just standard non-ride elevators also can give me problems sometimes since I'm claustrophobic. And on top of that, you have got a pretty claustrophobic queue. Now, luckily the entire queue isn't very claustrophobic, but as you get closer to the loading station, you will enter this kind of boiler room, basement type area that has all these valves and it's dimly lit and to me feels very underground, basement-like, very claustrophobic before you enter the actual elevator, which of course is claustrophobic on its own. So let's talk about those ride vehicles. So like I said, you are in individual elevators here. They seat about 21 riders per car in 3 rows of 7. So this is actually a great attraction to ride if you have a large family, a large party, and you all want to sit together. It's very easy to do on an attraction like this one. It's also worth noting that you will have a basic seat belt that just goes across your lap, clicks into place. You don't have any sort of overhead harness or anything that is particularly confining, at least as far as I'm concerned. And I'll also mention that this ride system does move horizontally and vertically. Like I said, there is a dark ride portion where the elevator will actually move forward in a horizontal motion before it goes into the elevator shaft, where you will be, of course, sent up and down in a series of drops and lifts for the actual thrill ride portion. Now, jumping into the ride time, this attraction clocks in at around 3 minutes and 30 seconds. This, of course, is a pretty standard ride time for other thrill rides in the parks, but it's definitely worth noting that 2 minutes of this is the dark ride portion, which leaves the remaining 1 minute and 30 seconds for the actual drops themselves. So if this makes you feel any better, the actual thrill ride portion, where you're going up and down these drops, is only for 1 minute and 30 seconds. And now that you have all the facts, let's actually go hop in line. I'm definitely feeling nervous about this one, but it is such a fun ride and I can't wait to experience it. It doesn't look like very long of a wait today, so I'm excited. Let's go. You'll find the entrance to this attraction on Sunset Boulevard in Disney's Hollywood Studios. Now, once entering the queue, you will find yourself outside in this very well-themed outdoor courtyard of sorts. You've got overgrown bushes. You really feel like you are entering an abandoned hotel here. And everything is, of course, in true Disney style, themed to the nines. Now, if you are here in the summertime, things can get very toasty in this area. There are a few fans, but for the most part, I found this area to be very, very hot. Now the line will just wind back and forth through this area until you come across some more very cool outdoor theming. You'll see an abandoned fountain that looks like it's been dry for decades. There will be this kind of overhead pergola that doesn't really protect you from the sun, but it does look very cool. And before you know it, you'll be winding your way along the outside of the building and prepare to enter the hotel. Now, once walking through these doors, you'll be met with this amazing sight, this perfectly themed hotel lobby. This is where you'll find the spider webs, and it really looks like it is frozen in time from the 1930s. I can geek out about this all day. I absolutely love this queue just for the theming. And unfortunately, you probably won't be in this lobby for too terribly long, because before you know it, you will be making your way to a cast member who will ask how many are in your party and lead you into the pre-show area. Now, after entering the pre-show, you'll find yourself in this room. Of course, the doors will close, just like with many other pre-shows. This is a medium-sized pre-show room. I definitely could understand feeling a little claustrophobic in here because the ceilings aren't just super, super high and you can be crammed in pretty tightly with the people around you. However, it is a pretty standard pre-show where the lights will go out. You will see up on the screen this very cool video kind of welcoming you to the attraction, setting the mood, getting you ready to board these elevators. Now, of course, there is more spooky theming in here. There is thunder crashing, some lightning. Again, the lights are dim, and that Twilight Zone spookiness definitely comes through here. However, after just a couple of minutes, the doors will open again, and you will head out into this kind of basement boiler room section that I was talking about before. This area definitely can feel very claustrophobic, at least to me. You feel very underground. There are no windows. It's still very dimly lit, and of course, that anxiety of being about to board this elevator can definitely kind of ramp up in this section, at least for me. me. Now, I have a confession for you guys. When I was filming this video, I got all the way through the queue, I got ready to board, and I just couldn't do it. I was having one of those days where my anxiety was really high, so I handed my camera over to my husband, who very kindly was willing to film the ride for you guys, and he was able to capture that footage for the rest of the ride. Now, luckily, I have ridden this attraction many times. Nothing about it is new to me, but you know, sometimes your anxiety just kicks up and it's not a good day, and this was one of those days. But I did want to mention it to you guys, first of all, just to be completely transparent and to let you know that I also have those days where some rides are just not happening. Now, I was able to speak to a cast member, told her that I had decided that I no longer wanted to ride, and she very graciously pointed me towards an elevator. I rode down with a couple of other anxious riders who had decided not to ride, and the elevator took us down to the exit where we could meet up with the rest of our family members when they finished riding. But of course, if you are brave enough to ride, let's talk about what you will experience on the actual ride. So once meeting that cast member at loading, they will sort you into your lanes and you will prepare to board your elevators. Now, once the ride sets off, the doors will close, the lights will go out, and you will hear that classic Twilight Zone soundtrack. Now, you will rise up a couple of floors, gently, I might add, before the doors open and you see this family as they are struck by lightning and teleported into this other dimension. You will see this kind of trippy starscape that really feels like you are staring into this void. Now, the doors will shut again, you will raise up a few more stories, and when the doors open this time, the ride actually travels horizontally. As you move through this kind of elevator shaft area, you hear the narration in the background preparing you to enter this other dimension. It's definitely spooky, but I would say in a fun way. And when you finally reach the end of the track, the lights will go dark again, and suddenly you will find yourself in a free fall drop that sets off the thrill ride portion of this attraction. Like I said, there are 4 different drop patterns, and you will be making several drops and sudden lifts where you're shooting upwards. It still kind of gives you that stomach in your throat feeling. And at one point, regardless of which drop pattern you happen to have that day, you will be making the full 13-story drop from top to bottom. You'll know when this drop is coming because you will see the doors open. You'll be able to see outside over all of Hollywood Studios. It really is a beautiful view. Of course, I never really appreciate it because I'm about to be plunged downward to my doom, but shortly thereafter, you will plummet downwards doing the full drop, and this drop sequence will continue for, as I said, about a minute and a half before the ride will finally come to a close. Now, as you make your way back to the loading station, the ride vehicle will travel horizontally once again. You'll see some more kind of trippy visuals, very on brand for the Twilight Zone as you make your way back. And finally, the doors will open again and a cast member will direct you out of the ride vehicle and towards the exit. Now, exiting this attraction is very straightforward. You will just make your way down a hallway and find your loved ones who may be waiting for you by the photo display. And after making your way through the gift shop, which is of course very well themed like the rest of the attraction and the lobby, you'll find your way back outside onto Sunset Boulevard. And there you have it. What do you think about the Tower of Terror? Is it as terrifying to you as it is for me? This is one of those attractions that I really do love in a lot of ways. I love the theming, I love the spookiness, but the drops coupled with the claustrophobia sometimes will just send me over the edge and it's not a good day, like this one. And of course, real quick, I wanted to give a shout out to our friends Attractions 360 for this great shot of the ride vehicles. I wasn't able to get as clear of a view as I wanted to, so thank you so much Attractions 360 for giving us a great view so you guys know exactly what to expect. And of course, if you liked this video, you would like to see more, please don't forget to leave a like, subscribe, stick around, stay a while. We would love to have you in our little community of anxious riders. I hope you guys have a wonderful day and I'll see you in the next one.